Hey, and welcome back to the Pursuit of Property podcast. I am sitting here with my good friend and co-host for the past few years, Cade Barrett. How are you, man?
Dude, what is going on? I'm hyped this morning. I'm excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today. It's always fun doing these towards the end of the year, just looking back and reflecting on one, not only all the content that was put out, all the amazing guests we had on, obviously all of our listeners and our supporters who have been supporting us, not only this year, but like you said, over the past few years. I mean, we're a little over 3 years in?
Yeah.
That's freaking nuts to me, dude.
We're on episode 127. We've been doing this for as long as I can remember at this point.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it's just cool. We've made it a long way. We still enjoy doing the podcast each week and putting out the content we're putting out. But today we're just going to kind of go over what 2023 for the podcast looked like, what it looked like for us individually, and maybe make a couple guesses as to how 2024 might look.
Yeah, 100%. And so obviously one of the trends every year, right? There's this, Wrapped that comes out either for Spotify, for music, right? Everybody and their mom's freaking posting it on their stories, right? Everybody's
spamming
the Drake
it. and the Taylor
Morgan Wallen and
Taylor Swift fans, dude.
And so what's kind of cool is Spotify actually now does that Wrapped, but now on the podcast end for hosts, which is really, really cool. So I think today we'd like to go through and just kind of do our year in review, pulling our Spotify specific stats. Obviously, our podcast is available across who knows how many platforms, right? So the stats we're going to be talking about specifically are directly from Spotify. And then also just going through some analytics from our YouTube, right? Covering all of our video stats. So I think it'll be good to go through and just kind of share with everybody what the past years look like. So starting with, and I'm going to be going through this Spotify Wrapped for podcasters. It starts off with a bang. It tells us what our top episode of the year was.
This guy deserved it, dude.
Dude, 90 success after struggle, closing your first deals with Dylan Miracle was the top episode of 2023.
Yo, Dylan, shout out to you. You put in the grind for a long time. I think a lot of people can relate to that. So big shout out to Dylan Miracle, #1 episode of the year.
Yeah, I think he has epitomized the true vision, mission, values of our podcast, right? We try to reach people who are trying to scratch the surface, get into real estate, whether it be investing, sales, both. And dude, if you guys have not listened to that episode, pause it right now and go listen, and you'll recognize and realize why this was the top episode. Dylan is an absolute killer. I think, and I don't want to misquote, but I know it took him a really long time before that first deal finally hit.
Over 2 years.
Over 2 years. And I know a lot of the mental struggles that not only Dylan talked about and faced when trying to just scratch away for 2 years before getting that first deal. And now, dude, if you guys haven't also followed him on social media, go check out his page. He's putting out good quality content. He's hustling. Him and his dad are absolutely kicking ass over there at Miracle Realty, both on the sales side and the investing side. So go give him a follow. Go give that episode a listen. Just an absolute freaking killer dude and killer episode.
And that's why we're making a surprise announcement that Cade and I will be stepping down as the hosts of Pursuit of Property podcast to have Dylan take over.
And just to put this into perspective for you guys, his episode was streamed 280% more than our average episode.
Nah, he crushed.
Which is absolutely bonkers to me. Not 20%, not 50, not 280% more, which is absolutely crazy. Very well deserved for our boy Dylan.
Shout out Dylan.
And now we're going to be talking about the new listeners and kind of new fans of the podcast this year. 74% of our listeners discovered us this year in 2023.
That's pretty big.
Which, if we put it into perspective, doing this for over 3 years, to have over or close to 3/4 of our listener base having found us this year. I think it just goes to the testament. We've talked a little bit about it before. Most podcasts don't make it. What is it? How many episodes? 20?
20, I think.
Yeah. So
or 127.
The majority of podcasts not even making it to 20 episodes. We are now at 127 episodes. I think it's just a testament to the consistency, and it makes me really excited. Like, hey, if year 3 experienced this much new growth and new listener base, I'm just excited with keeping the foot on the gas, because you made a great point. It's something we enjoy. We love putting out, hopefully good and informational content to all you guys who listen and watch. So thank all of you, new and old. And I think that gives me pumped for next year, just to see kind of the growth we hope to experience.
And starting in 2024, we will need you to pay to join our Patreon to support the podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
And talking about those 74%,
not even a single laugh
of new listeners. We want to shout out our boy KD, because 11% of our new listeners started with his episode, and it was episode 91, Scaling and Buying Multiple Businesses with KD. Brought in 11% of those new listeners. So shout out to our boy. Another really great episode, great guest.
A great example is somebody who's good at putting his content out there in a whole bunch of different ways. I don't know if you remember, but Mike Butler did the same thing a few years back. Mike Butler brought in a lot of new listeners. It's a testament to people who are good marketers getting their name out there.
Yeah, 100%. And just a last note on KD. If you haven't listened to that episode, any of the ones that are touching up here in this wrap are obviously worth a listen. Huge hustler, great dude, great guest, great pod. The next stat is really, really cool for me. It's talking about where we were streamed globally, right? And we were
not just in the US?
We were streamed in 8 countries.
What?
United States was our top country with the majority of our streams, right? 96%. But the other 4% coming in those other 7 countries.
What countries?
Let me see if it tells us.
Do they say continents?
They don't. This just tells us you were streamed in 8 countries, with United States being your top country with 96% of your total streams.
That's kind of interesting. Shows you how far reach can go.
Yeah.
Even if they just listen to one episode, how would somebody in Europe know about
the Pursuit of Property
the 2 idiots in Fresno?
Oh, man. These aren't specifically podcast specific, but just kind of cool to touch on. It talks about you guys, our listeners who are listening through Spotify. Our top podcast genres for you guys. Number 1 was comedy. 2 was business. 3 it was society and culture. So those were our top 3 categories for our listener base.
I wonder how many of these people are watching the Joe Rogan podcast, and Joe Rogan's put under comedy.
Under comedy.
I have a feeling we have a lot of Joe Rogan listeners.
Or who knows, we may be under comedy for being the couple bozos we are. So
we got flagged as comedy for being ridiculous.
Our listeners' top music genres, number 1 being rap, 2 being pop, and 3 contemporary country. All you country fans out there bringing up the top 3.
Baby, lock the doors and turn them lights down low.
And our rap fans, I'm sure they're excited, or I'm sure most of them are. For,
Yeezy.
For our boy Yeezy coming out with his new album. So
we've got that song, Everybody, stuck in our head right now. So shout out to the rap fans.
All right, so next one is just, it shares how our podcast was shared. 50% of our episodes were shared through text. So thank all of you who listened to an episode and took initiative. If you finding something valuable from there and sharing it with your friends, business partners, that's huge. I mean, 50% just coming from shares from you guys is, that's freaking awesome, man.
Yeah, we really appreciate that kind of support. We try to put out this information without, spamming it with ads or charging any fees. We've really covered the cost of this podcast. And in quick math, it's what, 15-ish thousand a year to do the pod?
Yeah. If we're shooting from the hip, that sounds about right.
It's about, it's somewhere in that ballpark. So it's definitely not free to do.
No.
And so the fact that you guys share it with other people, we really appreciate it. And we hope that we can keep the platform completely free of ads and anything except value. And the thing that helps us the most is just continuing to spread the word and helping as many people as possible. You know, we believe that the more people that are helped, the better everybody does.
Yeah, 100%. I think we've always tried to stay true to that goal of keeping, the podcast obviously ad-free, free for the listeners. I think your Zen sponsorship should hit sometime next year. Same with my Celsius sponsorship for the pod. So,
and you're starting an OnlyFans soon, right?
Oh, no, I think that was actually Jonathan behind the camera.
Oh, shout out. I don't think that's happening yet.
Yeah, I don't think so.
He's got the right camera equipment.
And talking about episodes that were shared, we talked about 50% of our episodes being shared. Our most shared episode, we're bringing back up episode 91, scaling and buying multiple businesses with our boy KD being the most shared episode. So shout out there to him and everybody that shared that episode. We appreciate it. Our podcast rating, we've got a clean max score of a 5.0. And I know we've never done a good job, for better or for worse, trying to spam and ask people for reviews. We've always had that come organically. So shout out to all of you who have taken the time to give the podcast a rating and to have it be 5.0. That's just freaking awesome. 5 out of 5 stars. We appreciate everybody who's taken the time to write a review, or even just leave that rating, because that obviously helps us a lot on our back end and even the front end for new people discovering the podcast.
100%. There's so many podcasts in real estate. Sometimes it's hard to know which ones are worth listening to. It's great to feel like we're providing value that's worth a 5-star review. So thank you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So in Spotify, I think it was this year where they introduced video directly in Spotify, which is kind of cool. So listeners, watchers can now watch the video version in Spotify or on YouTube. For Spotify specifically, we made 36 video episodes, and they were in the top 15% of our most viewed, which is awesome. So shout out to all of you guys who are listening or watching through Spotify. I know, at least on my end, I always love having the video aspect, especially always good just being able to get eyes on it. I know a lot of our listeners listen in the car too to the audio version only, but I think the video upgrade for us, which happened a year and a half, maybe a little bit over that, has been really great, and we've gotten really great feedback. So I think a great addition to the pod.
100%.
All right, what do we got next?
What was our total curated minutes? I think that was on there. No,
I think we may be getting to it. Yeah. So this is talking about Spotify growth specifically. Obviously on Spotify, you can follow podcasts, you can follow artists, similar to how you follow people, obviously, on other social media, right? So we had a 37% growth with our followers through Spotify, which is awesome. Listeners, we had a 3% growth. So got a big bump in followers there, just a little bit of bump to listening on Spotify specifically, as opposed to maybe some other platforms, Apple, YouTube, stuff like that. So just a couple cool stats there to share. All right. Can't forgive to give a shout out to our biggest fans. So we are a top 10 podcast for 58 of you who have supported and listened and watched. So you guys are all freaking amazing, being that we are the top 10 for 58 of you, which is awesome. We're a top 5 podcast for 43 of our fans, of our listeners and our watchers.
That's actually pretty substantial.
And we've got drum roll, please. We are the number 1 podcast for 16 of you out there.
You 16 homies, you're the goats.
You're the real ones right there.
That is consistency, and we appreciate it.
I am surprised your ears are not bleeding yet after having us, listening to us or watching us, for being your number 1 podcast. Bless you all. My goodness.
Dude, that's kind of cool. 16 people listen to our podcast more than any other.
Yeah. All right. And we're getting towards the end here. This is just recapping top 10 for 58 fans, top 543, top podcast for 16 of us here. And we created 1.5K minutes of content this year. So 1,500 minutes of content. I'm trying to scroll through here because now we're in just the graphics part. I'm trying to see if there's anything we missed that wasn't covered.
The math adds up. We created 25 hours of content
My gosh,
on Spotify.
dude. That's freaking crazy. 1,500 minutes created, which is absolutely nuts. Going through here, you guys, that's the end of our Spotify Wrapped for podcasters with all of those stats. So I think, dude, that's freaking awesome. A lot of those things, just seeing that year in review, just get me really hyped and excited for next year.
So I know when we were talking about what we were going to discuss on the pod, we talked about sharing, I guess, kind of what we did in 2023, maybe pivots, changes in lifestyle, things like that. Why don't you share some of the stuff that you've done this year differently than previous years, just so that, especially the listeners who heard a lot of negative feedback all year about the market, and about, lack of opportunities, they can see that even this year we both had a good year and we both had to make big pivots, and that's kind of what you have to do.
Yeah, and real quick, I want to mention just something really quick before we get into that. Just want to touch on our YouTube side of analytics real quick. We had a little over 22,200 views throughout the YouTube channel, which was a 25% growth from last year, which is really awesome. We had over 245 hours of watch time across all of our episodes, which is really cool, and gained 53 subscribers throughout the year. So nothing crazy there on the subscribers end, but obviously thank all of you guys who took the time to subscribe on YouTube. And our top YouTube episode being episode 88, How to Start Investing as a Realtor/Lender with our boys out of Sacramento, Jace Bieber and Thomas Harris.
Oh, shout out to our boys.
Yeah, dude. So cool stuff right there. And I think that's a great pivot, like you said, into just kind of how the year went for, as a whole. And I think for the two of us, it's been a really interesting, but a really good year, I think, as a whole, as we sit here, towards the end of December and look back. I think, interestingly enough, and correct me if I'm wrong on your end, I think both of us will end the year having made less than we made last year in terms of monetary.
Less than half of what I made last year.
Yeah. Well, and let me ask you, with having, and it's been about the same for me, coming up about just around that halfway mark of what was made last year. What goes through your head? Because obviously a lot of people's version or ideas of success are driven strictly by monetary goals and the amount of money that you've made or the amount of money that you've collected. With both of us sitting here having made half of the amount that we made last year, that's a dramatic drop. What goes through your head when we kind of speak that out loud and kind of just reflect on it?
Damn, you should have asked me that before the pod so I could have thought about it. I think there was a big change in perspective. And I started measuring how successful people were, instead of measuring it by how big their bank account was or how nice their things were, by how many days they woke up happy or were able to spend time with their family or their friends. And I looked at it more from a holistic, is their life going a direction I would want to go? Do they do the things they want to do? Are they happy with their work? And are they able to take care of their family, but not be, consumed by the drive to make money?
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, if we rewind a year ago, wrapping up the end of 2022, I think there was a lot of burnout involved And like you said, not only burnout, but I think just in a mental space, yes, we had each had career years in income, but it was finishing the year burnt out, not particularly happy, dare I say, maybe even a little bit unhappy. And in a space of, we had great years monetarily, but in our headspace, we had one foot checked out the door of the industry as a whole.
Yeah, we both did for sure. And I think the other part to it was there was a tough realization that like the money didn't make you happier. And I think we both felt like if I just get to this level of income, I will be happy. And I think you and I both had to take a really difficult look in the mirror and say, wow, I'm less happy now. And I don't think the money was what made me less happy, but the work that it took to make the money was the thing making me unhappy.
Yeah. And I think as we now, we look back on that a year ago, and then now we look back at all the changes that have happened and kind of what a crazy whirlwind this year, 2023, has been. I think the biggest takeaway that both of us have had, or I'll speak for myself, I think the biggest takeaway that I've had for this year, and the biggest maybe realization that kind of falls into all of this stuff we just talked about, with monetarily, is the realization of wanting to work with the right people, be in business with the right people, and surround ourselves with the people who not only hold us accountable to keep pushing forward, to keep growing, but also the people that we just have fun doing business and working with, dude.
Yeah.
It has been, one of our episodes this year was, hey, do you fly it solo or do you join a team? And even if you are a solopreneur or a sole business owner, it doesn't restrict you from still doing business with the people that you enjoy doing business with, whether that's on, joint venture deals, whether that's, through something else. But I think one of the biggest light bulbs for me was, dude, I've got to really double down on not only being intentional of the people I surround myself with, but I want to do business with them. I want to work with them. I want to figure out how we can have fun. Yes, making money as a byproduct, but really enjoying what we're doing. And like you said, waking up and just feeling good and feeling happy and feeling ready to attack the day, attack the week, attack the month, attack the year, and just have fun while doing it, dude.
I think the first big decision, like that, the first big pivot we made this year was signing up for that Ironman, dude.
Fuck, man. Absolutely.
You and I both knew signing up for something like that would change a lot, but I mean, we signed up for it at the end of January. We started training really in May, end of April, early May. We did our race in September. And if you look at just our quality of life from January to September, a lot changed.
Yeah. No,
a lot.
I don't think it, and I don't think it's an accident, man. I think all of those, not only the growth in physical health that came from that, a byproduct being the growth in mental and emotional health, it was no accident that all of that carried over into the majority of the rest of our aspects of work life, personal life. Yeah, dude.
Our discipline got way better. And when our discipline got better, we made better business decisions.
Absolutely.
So, like in April, after months of kind of talking with Jason about it, I rejoined Jason's team. That was a significantly more than 50% cut on my income. I've been way happier doing that than flying solo and sweating it out. I do the stuff that I want to do. It's still work. I mean, most people wouldn't like to do what I do, but I'm on a team where all I do are the things I like to do and I do it at a high level. And I don't think I would have made that decision a year ago had I not really gotten some mental discipline that like this is the right decision, even if it's a step back monetarily.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of, dude, I mean, just the emotions and the decision making that go into a decision like that, and now being here towards the tail end of the year, about what, 8 months? 8 months into it. Where do you, if you're on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with how work life has been since that jump in April?
Probably like an 8. And I don't think I've ever felt more confident that next year is going to be a blow up year in a long time. I mean, I've always had confidence. That's usually not been a big problem for me, but like just looking at the growth in the 8 months on the team and seeing, you know, even you here in the last month helping come in as a consultant role and set up a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, it's just dialed. And it's dialed in a way that a solopreneur can't do. And I think that is part of why I'm happier, is because I know I don't have all those responsibilities.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think everybody's going to have their own cup of tea, right? There are absolutely, you know, successful solopreneurs and solo business owners, whether they're real estate agents, professionals, or investors, obviously, that we know and that, you know, we're in tune with here in the Valley. But I don't know, man. I think, and I jump back to that episode where we talk about solopreneur versus joining a team. And I think you can only truly understand where you are going to flourish the most when you've dealt with both. And we both started on a team.
We did about equal amount of time too. I did what, 3 years and 2.5, and you did 2 years and 2.5.
Yeah. I think it's something, call it paying your dues, call it just going through
Cutting
fucking
your teeth.
being. Yeah, exactly. I think it's something that you need to go through to see, because again, we're not saying there's one specific, you know, one size fits all solution for everybody who may be dealing with some of the struggles that we dealt with, or some of the challenges and difficulties. But I think it makes it a lot easier when you have had time in both, and you can really figure out, one, where am I going to be most happy, and two, where am I going to flourish the most? Is it winging it with being a solopreneur and maybe building out a team underneath you, or joining a bigger team, kind of like we've been talking about, and just finding your niche and finding your role in that sense?
What's been the big pivots for you this year?
Yeah, I think, I touched on the first one, which I'll repeat really quick, which was being intentional about surrounding myself around not only the people that I like and enjoy in this space, but also figure out how is there a way to collaborate with those people? How is there a way to create win-wins with the people that I enjoy being around, not only maybe on a personal or a friendship level, but also on a business and work level? And that can be really hard sometimes.
Yeah.
We've talked about it endlessly, making that distinction between, hey, business partner or friend, right?
Which hat are you wearing?
Yeah. Which hat are you wearing? Because sometimes things can get really convoluted and mixed up. And so being really intentional about that. And I think this year, another big pivot for me is been trying to get intentional on longer term roadmap goals. Like I'm 24, you're 25. I'll be turning 25 in April. And I think a big pivot for me this year was trying to get out of going through the motions, which it felt like a lot of last year and the beginning part of this year was. It just felt like it was going through the motions day in, day out. Days were going by, and it didn't feel like there was really a lot of substance to what I was doing and what I was feeling. And I think having that pivot change to try to get intentional. Hey, what does the next 1 year, 3 years, maybe 5 years look like, not only for me on a personal level, but where do I want to see myself business wise and work wise professionally in the next 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years, so that I don't feel this way of going through the motions day by day. And I think something I'm still working on, but I think was a big, if we're talking about the dimmer switch and it started all the way down here, I think we're probably about 3/4 of the way up. So that being one of the bigger pivots for me on my end too.
How did you pivot in your day-to-day activities?
I don't want to sound redundant by using the word intentional, but I think
Get more specific.
It was a mental shift in the morning of asking myself, what is the purpose of the activities I'm doing today? What is the purpose behind this day in front of me? Not only maybe some, the task list stuff that needs to be checked off, but what's the driving purpose behind the stuff that I need to get done today, or the stuff that I'm working on today? And it was asking myself that question and figuring out, okay, as I look to what I want the next year to 5 years look like, both on a personal level, with friends, family, and on a business level, how can I be more purposeful and put a driving force behind the activities I'm actually doing? And it's hard to verbalize into words, because I feel like a lot of this is like in a big melting pot, and it's kind of all being stirred together because everything ties in together. But it was asking myself, what's the driving purpose for what I'm doing? What am I doing here, in this real estate space? Trying to find my voice and find my hat, right? And, some people might say, we've been in the business for, 4, 5, 6 years, between that, we've been in it quite a bit, right? And
in January, it'll be 6 years in the business for me.
And to still be, some people might say to still be struggling, try to find your footing and your purpose. Some people might say that shouldn't be happening, but I feel like that happens when these growths and these pivots, happen either accidentally or on purpose. So
yeah,
I don't know. May have been a lot of gibberish there, but I feel it's hard to verbalize. But that's kind of at least what's going in.
Yeah, and I only ask you because it's helpful to try to articulate what it was.
Yeah.
Looking into 24, I am curious on what you think, because I have a pretty strong opinion. But how do you feel 24 is going to be impactful, both for you personally and business-wise?
I think 2024, I've got some big goals personally that...
Share them.
I'd like to get into my personal house. I'd like to
buy and own a property.
Buy and own a primary residence, because obviously we've got some rentals out of state that are owned and rented, but I'd like to own my primary house that I'm living in by the end of next year. That's really my biggest personal goal. And it ties into business too, because I'm using a lot of business tactics to push and try and get into the right house the right way, the way I want to do it in the neighborhood that I want to be in. So I am planting those seeds, and the goal is by the end of 2024 to have those seeds come to fruition. That's the biggest goal personal-wise. Work-wise is the last Q4, tail into Q3, Q4 this year has been a little bit hectic. Was solopreneur, then was on a team in a sense for a little bit of time, back to now being a little bit of a solopreneur, but just doing, collaborations and projects with people I know, like, and trust, right? 2024, I'd like to get my feet fully underneath me and not feel like I'm kind of buzzing around and going hectic all over the place. I'd like to really find my true work purpose and activities for 2024. And I know, it's still up on the whiteboard. I know we did a little bit of, kind of vision casting for what you want your daily schedule, week in and week out, to look like. I'd like to find and get that solidified for me, obviously sooner and earlier in the year rather than later. and just really see how having that structure plays out for the rest of the year. And I anticipate I'm on the same page as you. I think next year, in a business sense, for real estate agents, investors, entrepreneurs who are taking advantage of the opportunities we have in front of us, I think the people who are working on the right things with the right amount of effort are going to see are going to see a great year next year. And I think for maybe people outside of real estate on the sidelines, I also think there's opportunity for people who may have no idea how to invest in real estate or have no idea to invest in their financial future. I think the opportunity is already here, but I think 2024 is going to serve as a really big opportunity for the people who are ready to seize the moment. It's going to be there, whether you're in real estate or not.
Yeah. I think 24 is going to be transformational for me. Kayla left her job, right? So by the time this podcast's up, her last day's tomorrow. So this will be in a few weeks when this podcast goes up. We made that decision by looking at how I performed even this year with a down year and looking at where the team is going. I think financially, my business is going to boom. I'm not exactly sure how, but I know it will. I think personally, there's a lot of growth that I've had being back around guys like Jason and, even being around Morgan, being around the people that are on our team. And I think it's made me a lot more calm in some senses and a lot more rational in the way that I look at risk. And coming into the end of the year, we have more projects in escrow or that we already own than we had at any point in the year. And I believe that is a result of the 8 months of very diligent back-end work that you helped me with and that you are now helping at a higher level with some of the system stuff that I can't do. But I think that's just evidence to me of only, a few months of working diligently at building a company versus building a hobby. And I think that we have a lot of the right people in the right seats, and the timing of the market couldn't be better. Right now, we are seeing interest rates seeming to stall, and we can already see the buyers coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember the tunnel going into Yosemite Valley that's super long, but you can see the light at the end of the tunnel at the start, but it's just the whole time you just see that light getting bigger? I think we have passed the halfway mark of what the Fresno Market recession is going to look like. I could be 100% wrong, but I feel certain that if the interest rates come down, our flipping business will boom. And if the interest rates don't come down and there is a big financial recession, I will pivot the business in a way that allows us to buy so many assets, it will be worth way more than the flipping business booming. And so I feel super confident having that conversation with Danny last week about buying multifamily properties. I could see that being something that comes to fruition next year.
Yeah.
But overall, dude, I feel extremely confident and excited about 24. And, I think if you're not feeling that way right now, you need to just spend more time with the people that are putting in the hours, because a lot of people are leaving the business still. And I would hate to see somebody leave the business because of their perception of the market instead of sticking it out with the people that have their heads on straight and that can see a clear path.
Yeah, I think it's a good best practice, and it makes sense for a lot of people, right? End of the year, beginning of a new year, New Year's resolutions, this stuff. Like it's a big, just inherently, shift for a lot of people. But I think what people should be doing right now, I agree, if they're in that position. One, take a look at your inner circle. Take a look at who you're surrounding yourself with, who you're spending time with, and whether their goals, their actions are aligning with your goals and your values and your beliefs. And even though, you do that now at the end of the year, I think take that as a habit, and that should be something you are continuously doing if you haven't been, as you do that now into the new year. I think finding your inner circle and solidifying your inner circle and continuously keeping tabs on who you're surrounding yourself with is going to be one of the biggest factors and, determinants of not only where you're going to be at, headspace wise, mentally, emotionally, but also on the opposite end of the spectrum, where you're going to be at business wise or professionally. So yeah. I think that's something everybody should be doing right now.
Yeah, it's a negative cycle to wait until New Year's to do a New Year's resolution. If you're running in this business, man, you should be thinking about your next year starting in October, Q4.
Yeah.
And that means that your spring cleaning, which for the average person is going to be in, March or April.
Yeah.
You should treat your spring cleaning by going and cleaning out those friends that aren't pushing you to go the direction you want to go. And each year you should take that seriously, and you should look at who you spent time with and decide, is that a beneficial relationship or not? And you should be making those decisions this time of year, because if it takes you until March or April to do your spring cleaning, you won't hit your goals.
No, 100%, man. Well, dude, I think this was I know we're a little bit shorter today, actually close to on par. But to all of you guys who have listened, who have watched, who have supported, shared, any and everything related to those for our podcast, we appreciate you guys. We appreciate all of the support you have given us. And we're just excited. Hopefully, we've brought you guys this year a great amount of guests with a great amount of content, lots of really amazing stories that were shared on the podcast this year. And we hope that we can bring that to you guys twofold in 2024. So I know we're excited to continue building this out, getting great guests and great content on for you guys. So thank all of you who have stood by us, new and old, throughout this year and as we go into 2024.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to all our listeners. We will see you guys back here in 2024.